What is up, everybody? We're going to be doing a Instagram live here, and I wanted to invite the team because definitely can't do this alone, or it's not as good when I do it alone. So, as you join us, I want you to think about all your beautiful family and friends that have passed. And as we sage the area, and I want you to think about what was your legacy with these people? What did you learn from them? Amanda's on here. Want to invite Amanda on. She'll be here in a little bit. Let me close the door real quick. There you go, Amanda. How are you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing good.
Nice.
I'm doing lovely.
You always have some
How's your
awesome
day?
colors in all your surrounding. Do you
I
hear me?
have some awesome what?
Colors in your
You
surroundings.
cut out colors. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. I did my paintings back here, and I just found this lamp at a Texas thrift store just yesterday. It's got angels all over it. It's beautiful.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I thought, how perfect would that be to have that in our little chat today.
Yeah, for sure. Nice in intent there.
Angels, right? They're always here with us. They're always watching over us. We have guardian angels, ancestors, the spirit of nature around us, all of it.
So this is kind of a deep question. What is your relationship with the dead?
Well, I guess there's a lot to say with that, but my relationship with the dead it's a beautiful connection. It's hard because we are in this physical realm and they're in a spiritual one. So the way that we connect is through messages, and everyone, I'm sure, it's different the way that they have connections with loved ones who have passed or spirits, on the other side. But for me, my connection with them is beautiful because I tend to get messages from birds, from butterflies, things with wings, and it's a beautiful connection. It's not anything dark. It's not anything negative than what I assume most people's experiences would be with the dead. But for me, it's go sit down there. Okay, I love you. Thank you. For me, it's always something beautiful. It's always peaceful. It's always, either a connection or a new connection or a transition. Either a transition for me in my life or for somebody else, or a transition for them. I've dealt with some people who have dealt with loss, and it's been, difficult for them because they don't quite understand it, Okay, baby. Go inside and go grab your snack on the table. Go in the kitchen. Okay? Make sure you Thank you. Hey, how are you?
Hey, folks. How's it going? Happy hump day.
So yeah, for me, it's a beautiful thing. I'm able to have a better understanding of life and our purpose by understanding what death really is. It is just a transition. It's when people are moving from one state to another.
Yeah. I think a lot of times it's hard to understand death because we have so many earthly blind spots.
Right. Being in the physical, it's hard. It's hard because we have so many walls put up, our perspectives or expectations. So I feel like we struggle because death is something very lucid and very up in the air, if you will, like smoke. You can't really know exactly where it's going to come from or go. You know, just like death is like life, like birth, but even more questionable. We never know. We never know when we're going to lose someone. We never know when we're even going to lose a part of ourselves. It just happens, you know, and we just shed. And it doesn't mean that that part of us or them is necessarily gone. It just means that they're in another place. You know, energy, something I always think of when it comes to dealing with laws, is energy is neither created nor destroyed. It just transfers. So it goes from one place to the other. So when somebody I've lost, for example, for me, somebody close to me, I always look at where their spirit could be now. You know, what can they embody now? What would they have embodied? You know, and it's beautiful because when you pay attention to that and you have that awareness, you can see the spirits around you and you can connect to that in that sense. It's even more beautiful because it's a different kind of language when you're speaking with the dead. It's you really have to look, and you really have to be aware and in tune with yourself in order to connect with the other side. And once you're in tune with yourself and you understand what death is and you have respect for it, you understand what type of energy it is, you can see it all around you. So death is not, it's not a bad thing. It's just a transition, you know.
Would you like to add something, Corona?
Yeah. Well, obviously we can't see death without seeing life, right? And how both are kind of intertwined with one another. And culturally, at least we know with like Dia de los Muertos, for example, a lot of my cultural upbringing revolves around celebrating death, celebrating that transition, right? From here being in carnal form to then being in spirit form, right? But also I like to think about loss and gain, right? When we think about death, we think about a loss, but we don't always focus on the gain part, right? We're losing someone physically speaking, but we're also gaining a lot from that experience that we had, you know, with the person here on earth, right, in carnal form, but also, you know, we gain the experience of learning how to cope with loss, learning how to cope with not having that person or not being able to rely on that person physically speaking. um yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to bring up. And one of the things I think also came to my mind when you were talking earlier, was how people who grieve, people who go through losing someone in carnal form, oftentimes ask themselves, why this person? Why not tomorrow, or why not 10 years from now? And there's this anger part that comes into those emotions. I think I've never lost a parent. Thank God, thank you Jesus for letting me have my parents here in carnal form. But when, you know, I think about like my mom, right? She, when I went to college, she lost a baby. A baby didn't even get to make it, you know. And oftentimes people are angry because they're like, why now? You know, why the baby and why not me, right? The baby was so young, but kind of like what you were saying earlier, is our time is not defined on this planet. You know, we don't know when our time is coming. We don't know when our last breath will happen. But I think it's also a life lesson for us to learn to appreciate those moments that we do have with people, you know, and make the best out of every day, out of every second that we have with that person, because we don't know, right? I mean, with COVID and everything, I know a lot of us were learning to appreciate people's presence a lot more than before, because people weren't able to physically be with their loved ones because we were afraid, right? We were living in a time where it was kind of like the twilight zone, right? So a lot of people were like, well, is it safe for me to see X, Y, and Z? Is it better that I just FaceTime them? And we have all of these tools, right? We have so many tools nowadays to be able to connect with people, um, telephonically, right? Or virtually, like we are here in this space. Um, so yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to share.
Awesome, awesome. So right now I wanted to I wanted to transition. I wanted to transition in talking about my when my father died in April of 2020, and then go into like solutions for doing it. Um, I ran into somebody, her name was Ladybug, after my father, a little while after my father had passed, and I would say like and I didn't really, sometimes I know stuff, but I really don't understand it. And I said it was easy for me to grieve my father because I'm in a natural state of grief. And she got it, and she said, yeah, that's a good state to be in. So like when you say goodbye to one of your friends, like grieving the lost. I'm more talking about like you see him at coffee and you're not gonna be able to see him for a month. Um, you could just think of like a dog. You could leave a dog for 5 minutes and come back, and the dog's so excited to see you. Um, but so 2020, April 13th, 2020, it was just like any other day. My mom had called me and said that she's thinking of taking my dad to the hospital because he's not feeling good. Um, and so I stopped working, ready to go over or make a move and everything, whatever the situation was. And then all of a sudden it just was getting faster. My dad didn't want her to call an ambulance because it's probably like the ego of like how it would look, um, for that to happen. And even to the point when he was like out of it, my brother had to tell her to on the phone to call the ambulance. And I think my brother ended up doing it, and we all rushed over there. And there was like two police cars and an ambulance and a big fire truck. I even saw one of the police pass me when I was going over there. But I was even in the state of, okay, I'm going over there. There's nothing I can do right now. I'm not going to rush and get in an accident. As I was going in there, and then um, my concern of going over there was that if something happened, I didn't want my mom to be alone. And I wasn't able to go into the house, because all the police were there, and I'm sure some assholes try to like sneak into a house when something like that's going on. And so I respected that boundary. And after they take my father out, my mom comes down, and my other brother had already gotten there, my brother Ron. And when we went into the house, my mom said that she was looking at the vitals on the screen, and he's not going to make it. So we didn't, it wasn't he was going to rush to the hospital, and we weren't going to be able to find that out. So I hear it. My brother's social distancing. I'm not going to social distance in that situation. And I'm sitting there present to what's going on, sitting by my mom, and then all of them go to the hospital. And I already heard that he died, and I'm already saying that he's not the body at this point. So immediately when they had left, I wanted to check in with myself to see how are you doing, to like really feel it. A lot of people don't want to feel what's going on. And the way, learning from Jerome Gross, not particularly on this, it may take you 20 years to feel something before you finally make a breakthrough or make a change, but you can feel all that pain or whatever it is for you to make that change like right now. So I I went and I couldn't talk. I could go into the store and like order something, but I couldn't talk about my father's death for the first 2 days. I was just like but I was present to feel what was going on, like every step of the way. And I just couldn't talk about it. I remember around 2 days I was practicing saying it like by myself, just to see how I was and how I was checking in with it. And then somewhere around 2 days, I said, what was my legacy from my father? I go, what did I learn from him? I go, the reason why you're suffering so much, you learned your sense of humor from your dad, and you find everything funny, and you're not making jokes. So I'm like, I'm gonna make fucking jokes. I'm gonna find a way to make jokes. And the other thing, and the other thing is my dad was really good at giving back to helping people. So one of my friends that he asked me to help if he could help me because when I was like late 20s, I had to rush over to his high school to tell him that his father had died. So he was in high school at track practice, and I was also called for my business. I was more corporate at the time, and my brother and I went over there to tell him that his dad died. And I couldn't physically say it, but when my brother told him, he like was crying in my arms like after, and then we had to drive him over to the hospital. And what the plan was is they didn't want to do it, so he asked for them to help, and I know he has some health issues, so I said, you know what, I can help you is like I want to help you with your health issues so you can spend more time on this planet with your children. So I totally went into that, but still present to what I was feeling. I wasn't distracting myself. I was making the most of the situation that was there, and that's where it starts to change. So whether, as Corona was talking about, how a child leaves the planet in a short period of time, that child has a purpose. We like to attach it to time and how long they're in there, but there could be something and there should be something, and sometimes it's harder to look of like what was the purpose and what did you learn from that person. And me personally, I was okay with the situation more than most with my father, and I was able to fully grieve it in a week in a week and a half because I was feeling it, making sense of it, and totally push through that. And a lot of times people get too attached to time. And I'm open to the fact that when my mom passed away, it's going to be a lot worse. But and I can't imagine like a small child in my family losing that. My the one that I had talked before, my friend that killed his 18-year-old daughter, who was very, very special to me, Amy, the grieving her loss, like on the anniversary of my dad's death, it was harder to me to think about Amy dying because she was so special. I mean, we're all special in certain ways. Some people it's easier to see the specialness, but it was like so sad. And I met Amy when she was 2, and then I saw her when she was 16 at a funeral. Then I saw her at a funeral. We even talked about speaking to dead people, and it's grieving can be a beautiful thing if you do it with purpose instead of on accident. Does anybody
Yeah,
want to add to that? I kind of went on a long
I
dissertation.
did. I wanted to add to that if you don't mind. Earlier, I was kind of meditating on this chat, we were gonna have, and I was, kind of channeling like what would spirits want me to say, and you kind of already said part of that pretty much, is going through the grieving part of it. I've had to do that, with my grandfather, which I actually have, surprisingly enough, I have his guitar sitting right up above me in that case there. But I was told by spirits that, like, number one when it comes to grieving is to sit in it and feel it out like 100% without any distraction. That just kept coming to me. zero distraction, zero distraction. Like, don't run from it, don't avoid it, don't use anything as a crutch, you know, just like dive right into it and cry it out, scream it out if you have to. Like, release any pent up energy that you have towards that loss so that you're able to get through it much faster, you know, because really prolonging it, you know, you're still going to have to do it one way or another at some point in time. And I feel like the longer we wait, it's like a vine, and it continues to grow within us, you know. And if we don't,
can I ask you a question?
yeah.
What some people don't want closure. Well, I mean, and I may need to what's the difference between closure and grieving?
Grieving is, I think, kind of going through the waves and emotions of the loss of the person you're losing. Like, you're reminiscing, kind of thinking about what you may or may not have anymore. Having that closure is that final, like, you know, I know it's done and over with. I know there's no going back. Even it's like, even when a relationship ends and you bury that, and you're just like, you have that final closure where you know within your heart that you've let that person go. You know, and it's funny because for whatever reason, I've had a dream of one person who was very close to me, and I didn't get to have that closure. But in a dream, they came to me, and we were in a pasture of tall grass. They came to me, we met and took hand in hand and just said what, you know, kind words to one another. And then my dream ended. And it, you know, to me, that kind of, it makes me think of having that closure with a loved one, even somebody who's passed, and just coming to terms. And I've had friends who have told me that, you know, their spirits come into contact with them through their dreams. And I have a close friend of mine where his mother came to him in his dream, kind of the same way that I had, you know, a friend of mine come to me in my dream. And it was the same way, you know. She told her son, you know, like, I love you, I want you to know I finally have let go, because she was grieving and dealing with addiction and stuff like that, and that's actually what killed her. And he thinks her spirit, you know, was still lingering because she was still dealing with that loss. It was still unsettled for her. But it took her a couple of years, and she finally came to him and, you know, said, I've seen you and my other kids do well, and it, you know, that has helped me with my grieving, with my loss, with not being able to be in the physical because of the choices that she made, you know. But she was able to move on finally because she realized. And it's funny that it's the other way around, you know, that it's actually the spirit, the one who has already passed, is still struggling. You know, we all have something, I think, that we hold on to. And another thing that I wanted to say was that we should try to live without grief, like, you know, as little as possible, because we carry all that to our grave. You know, in the end, I feel like whatever it is that we're holding on to, whether it is a loss of somebody or something within ourselves or trauma, something that's happened, if we don't let it go, it will consume us as we get older. These thoughts or these triggers, this loss that we have, it will continue to just wear us thin. And, you know, we live in a world where so many things around us are trying to do that. So we have to be strong and, you know, just face it head on, and see the beauty in it as well, because it is a beautiful thing if we choose to do that.
And I believe it's not just for grieving, it's for putting everything that you need to put in front of you, the emotions and everything to become a better person, to accomplish bigger things. I think that's very, very, very important.
Right, right. Sometimes the loss we have it's a catalyst to do even more, you know, in our lives. I've I've seen that. That's happened for me. First person that was really dear to me was my godmother, who passed away. Before she passed, she was dying of cancer stage 4 in her lymph nodes. And so I took it upon myself to do research of natural healing. and started diving into books and even got into deep, heavily prayer and reading the Bible every day. I was like, what do I need to do? What scriptures do I need to read? What, what natural plants can I give her to help her heal? What prayer can I say? What intention can I put out there? And when I was continuing to do this, I came to realize too that if she's meant to pass, she's meant to pass. And that's what my prayers came to be, was also acceptance. But at the same time, I did want to try and save her. But I realized that, when it's somebody's time, it's someone's time. But she was my catalyst to start trying to heal people who still have a chance to be healed, because she was, not to say too far gone, she probably could have healed, but she and her family did not have the intention, so they just kind of let her go in the existence she was already, which was consuming alcohol, smoking cigarettes, eating unhealthy, and it was her day-to-day life. And when the cancer hit, they were like, well, just let her do it, because they already saw how bad it was. And the chemo just kept making it worse and worse. So for me, it was my catalyst. It made me realize there's other alternatives. We can heal naturally. We can try to change our diets, our lifestyle, our mentality before it gets too late, because sometimes it does become too late for people, or it is just their time, but we have to take all that into consideration, that why this loss was not for nothing. What was it for? What differences can we make now with knowing what we learned from this person, or even the experience we had with that person.
What do you, and this question is for both of you, but some cultures are very, very um, they think talking to the dead is bad. How can you help ease the mind on that, or have an understanding of it? Because if somebody has that belief, that could be do damage right there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know if you have anything to say on that, or I okay. So for me personally, like was kind of mentioning earlier, um, the way that we can connect with death, it's very subtle, and it's not in this language that we're used to. It kind of comes in messages and in ways that we can connect to that spirit, something that may resonate with that person, or with the two of you end up seeing, and you can go more into depth and find somebody to help you connect with that person, and find a medium. But even then, I don't think you need that, because I think we are all that medium. We all can channel, the spirit within us and the spirits around us. We can connect to and see. It's just about becoming aware and understanding too. Even if your faith is Christianity or anything else, you still have the ability to connect with spirit and with spirits. There's nothing, I don't think in my eyes that there's anything wrong with that, because they can further help your growth and give you faith and give you that nudge or push or reminder that you're not alone. Because sometimes, even we live in this physical realm with so many bodies around us, but sometimes we still feel like we're in it alone. And I think that's a beautiful thing about connecting with spirits or connecting with the dead, because they're really not dead. We use this word, but they're not dead. They live on. Their legacy lives on. Their spirit lives on. And again, the energy is not created nor destroyed. It's just transferred. So it's just somewhere else. And it's speaking to you in a different tongue or in a different voice that you just don't quite understand. But the beautiful thing, and I was watching this earlier with my daughter, she's only 3, and my partner's grandmother is 93, and she doesn't speak English. My daughter, she speaks a little bit of Spanish. We're trying to teach her, but you can see the communication barrier, but you can still see the connection. You can see that this is new life, and this is life on its last, end. And you can still see the beauty. They're peering out the window, they're staring out and this was just today too, and it's beautiful that we're having, this conversation. We are. But to be able to see that, and see that no matter the age or the differences, if you just choose to see the beauty in life, and you choose to peer out that window and connect with the sunlight, connect with the light and the energy, It's all around us, just as spirits are, as somebody that we've lost. It doesn't mean, and we are light. If we're light energy, we're not of darkness. Spirits are not death. Death, somebody who passed is not of darkness. They're just a light being. Now they're even brighter of a light than they were before, because they don't have this physical body trapping them in a sense. You're able to see them in all different fractals and forms. Sometimes I feel like when the light's hitting me a certain way, and I'm kind of getting goosebumps now just talking about it, but when light hits me a certain way, or even I see a feather or a butterfly, and it's usually in the sun, as the sun is kind of projecting onto my face, to me I take that as like a form of spirit, or a message from spirit, even from the Holy Spirit, which I feel we're all connected to, we all go back to when we pass. So connecting to the dead is, you're not connecting to the dead, you're actually connecting to life itself. That's one thing we need to understand, and not be so taboo. Same thing with sex, like we said in our last conversations, sex shouldn't be taboo, death shouldn't be taboo, but we tend to create so many walls and blockages and tell ourselves that this is something that's negative or bad, or we shouldn't connect to it, so we avoid it and run from it. But I definitely think these are things that we should start to acknowledge more and see more, that it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, instead of something so dark. And
Would you like to add anything, Corona?
I feel like she hit the nail right on the head. I mean, that was perfectly said. I agree with everything you're saying. I think if there's one thing I can think of is, oh, yes. So these messages that we're talking about, I think the powerful thing with that is that every individual gets to see the messages for their own and gets to interpret their messages for their own, right? And that's the power that we have in the receiving end, right? But I also wanted to throw in the word aliento. How do you say that in English? Kind of like essence, right? Someone might pass physically, but their essence remains, right? The smell of someone, the certain style someone had, for those who were alive to experience it. Then there's also the stories that were passed down for those who may not have experienced it, but the stories were passed down in writing, in song form, in spoken form, right? And even that is powerful within itself. Obviously, depending on the mediums, the message or the idea of a person can change, right? But here now, us as human beings, as people who are currently alive and in carnal form, we can start to think about those things for ourselves, right? We talked about legacy. What did I do on this planet, or what is that big mark that I left on this planet, on this earth, on another person, on another individual, on a group of people, right? Us being here right now is powerful because we have the capability of leaving our marks behind, whether it be in writing, which is really cool, right? And we think about the Bible. We think about the Bible being left as a legacy in writing, right? The life of Jesus and all of those disciples. But then we also can think about how history is changed, right? Depending on the agents who may have had an impact on the word, right? The Bible, as being translated into so many other languages, changes the essence of the real being, and we don't know, right? We don't know what the reality or what the 100% real truth is to something. Once things start to be, like, if it's in vocal form, things can orally be changed over time, right? And if it was in writing, like the scripture, sometimes even churches altered words and remade another version of that Bible or that book or that story, right? I thought that was worth mentioning. I don't know what y'all think about that, or if you have anything else to add to that. I'd love to hear.
One thing I wanted to share on that, and I also wanted to give an example. So a lot of you know that I'm a Bob Marley impersonator. So I believe that I channel Bob Marley's energy. So when somebody's listening to a Bob Marley album, even though he's not alive, but he's more alive than a lot of us still, you're channeling into the energy of that art. When you look at somebody, whether they're alive or dead, you're looking at their art, you're channeling the energy of that. The words that somebody writes, even though there's so many words, it's like the order that somebody puts in it. You could take a book and take all those words and then put them in a different order, and it could be a totally different book to do it, but it's the same words. So when I was being interviewed for the Reader article, I was walking up these hills in La Mesa, which is in San Diego for those people who are in different parts of the world. I was walking at night up in there, and I was kind of thinking, I was like, oh my goodness, this guy's not going to like do this interview. It's not going to make the papers. A lot of stuff that I do just isn't going to translate to be able to be put in a mainstream paper. And all of a sudden, there's a fight. Two people arguing with another guy, and the reason why I was paying attention to the fight, because it was the best acoustics for argument I've ever heard. And these guys are yelling back and forth. And so we're just like walking up. And right when I got and I saw what was happening, I said, do you want to see Bob break up this fight? To the person that was interviewing me. And he goes, yeah. And then I just got into state, and I just go, one love, one heart, let's get together and feel all right. One love, whoa, 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 one heart, let's get together and feel all right. And in moments, one guy that was they're ready to go to blows. One guy starts singing along, his friend starts laughing, and then the other guy was going between being, and the only way I could put it is like, you know when a kid falls down and starts crying and the parent tries to make the kid happy right there? That's what the other guy was doing. So I shifted the timeline just by channeling into that energy that's available to anybody.
That's beautiful. I love that. It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that you channel him, because I feel that energy so strong whenever we do our lives, or I just feel that reggae vibe, that peace and just love. Like, it's all about love, and I love that.
Yeah, for sure.
And we all have that ability to be able to tap into that and make that difference, you know. And it's beautiful because his spirit is gone, or his physical body is gone, but his spirit is still here with you and with all of us. You know, he's just another prophet, like we all can be, you know, depending on our choice that we choose to make.
It's interesting. When I was writing Lizzie and Me, it was probably about 5 years before I was doing the Bob Marley impersonation. I used to have a VHS. Shows how old I am. I used to have a VHS and of his mom talking about the first song that she ever heard him sing, Bob sing, was Mr. Don't you touch me, potato, touch me, yummy pumpkin potato. And I was singing that at one point, and my mom said, that's a song on the islands that we do. The potato is a different part of the body. So they teach the kids to not tell people to touch parts of their body, but without using shame. So when I wrote Lizzie and Me, I was channeling into that energy because I didn't want to add shame to the story.
That's beautiful. I love how you did that. And that's the beautiful thing about life, is we can alter it however we choose. It's all about perspective. That's all it is. In a moment, we can change that perspective instantly and choose to be happy, or choose to accept, or to move on, or to heal, or to expand our awareness. It's really all by choice. And for influence.
And for some of the people in the audience that are business minded or success minded, mainstream success minded, I just want you to know that Mark Twain channeled. Well, we all channel on some level, but he's seriously channeled. The biggest #1 business book is called Think and Grow Rich, written in the early 30s. The first thing actually used the first edition of the book actually used the word channel, but they ended up taking it out of there. and Tesla, the guy that we haven't even caught up with, that has been passed for a long time. That guy was a channeler. So there's very lots of power in this. And what are you under the influence of? Are you under the influence of light? Are you in the influence? Are you channeling light? Or are you channeling darkness?
Yeah.
I channel a little of both.
I mean, we all do. And that's the beauty, you know, in accepting life and death, is that we all have a part of us, you know, that is of light and of darkness, you know, or experiences that were bad and experiences that were good, you know, that create a whole. It's kind of like, I love that movie. What is it called? Is it In and Out? That animated film about emotions, and it kind of shows you about anger and what is it, sadness, and
Inside Out.
Inside Out, yeah, like In and Out. Yeah, that movie really expanded my awareness on that concept, and I was like, very, very interesting, you know, how every little thing, even you know, I take my experiences that most would be like, damn, you know, I'm sorry you've experienced that. I feel bad for you. And it's like, no, that made me stronger. It actually made me who I am. It made me have boundaries. It made me have more respect for myself and my strength and my spirit, you know. And going back on our topic, not to go off, but you know, being able to overcome whatever it is that we're grieving makes us that much stronger too. Once we've overcome that, there's light at the end of the tunnel. You know, I definitely think for each individual it's something different, but we all have this experience, and just because somebody's gone doesn't mean that that we shouldn't be celebrating them. And I loved how you mentioned earlier about Dia de los Muertos and how it's in your culture, you celebrate death. And I feel like, not right now, I feel like we should all celebrate death, you know, because it's a beautiful thing. I said no, don't do that because it's loud. Okay.
I want to shout out really quickly. I'm gonna go ahead and interject.
Yeah.
I have a friend who is hosting kind of like I don't want to call it an art exhibit, but it's like it's an opportunity where artists can speak on the topic of a little bit of death. And this is happening out in Connecticut. Shout out to Zulynette. You can look them up. Zulynnette. But yeah, if you're interested and you're in that area, I definitely recommend that you check that out. But yes, there is a little bit of death in everything. A little bit of death in everything, because for us to have life, we have to have death.
Yeah. There's a contrast. So Amanda, is there anything in the essential oils realm, the natural herbs, for helping with grieving?
We just did some painting yesterday, actually, oddly enough, butterflies. So dealing with grieving, or, you know, really, I think, you know, has to go back to the emotions of the loss. So I think when it comes to like essential oils or things that you could do, or even plants, I would recommend things like lavender, chamomile, passion flower is really good too, for the nerves, to help just calm and relax the nerves. And dealing with kind of what I was like channeling and meditating on earlier when dealing with loss, that is so grand, or, you know, really makes an effect on us, is again going inwards and really giving yourself that time. And what I was thinking was, what's beautiful is one, meditation, like sitting here now, you know, but in your own space, burning, you know, whether it's Palo Santo or sage, or even a combination like burning lavender.
I was gonna add Copal as well. Those two can be
Copal is
done. Yeah.
beautiful. Frankincense, yeah. Anybody who's familiar with resins, that's really beautiful too. I've got a bunch of copal and frankincense that I love to burn. It's good to help connect with the spirits as well, but even also calm the nerves. What's beautiful about Palo Santo is it helps to release a chemical. It helps to release serotonin. There's a chemical inside a compound when you burn it that will release serotonin from the mind. So Palo Santo, I think, is beautiful, beautiful. If you're dealing with, just those overwhelming nerves or feelings. And again, lavender is really good. And herbal teas are also really good to sit and kind of meditate with yourself and just think about those thoughts and take it in. This one. There's, like good minty teas, like feel good teas. And again, that passion flower and kava is really good too, for stress. And what I like to do is I take my essential oils, like I had it here earlier. Ginger. I would take essential oils that are good just for the lymphatic system, or even good for that blood flow, blood circulation. If you've, hold on, baby love. Can you put it over there now? But I would do that. I would give yourself like a personal massage with essential oils. And ginger is a really good one for the lymphatic system. You can do also cinnamon or peppermint, wintergreen. And again, you have those calming essential oils too, like lavender, chamomile, rose. All these essential oils are very soothing. So you can even rub them on the temple to calm the mind. Rub them over the hands. There's also an area here if you're tending to get like migraines or headaches a lot, maybe from crying. I know sometimes you get those headaches from crying. Really stay hydrated. Drink lots of water. But this lymph node right here, if you just press on this and hold it down for 30 seconds or more, it helps to alleviate a headache, migraine, or tension.
But be careful not to hit the wrong pressure point because you might end up with a boner.
You just told me that earlier.
Yeah, I wanted. Let me add this one in. So, for me, with what can we do to, or what kind of herbs can we implement into our regimen if we must, to kind of help with I'm sorry, hold on, with coping with loss, death. For me, my ancestors and those scents that come to my mind play out a lot with what I use.
Yeah.
And it's something that comes to me really intuitively. Like when he asked what herbs, I don't know if you saw him, but I like mouthed the word lavender. And like a second later, you said lavender and chamomile. And those two are ones that I rely on a lot, actually. And I use them with my son. I kind of like to pass those like herbal scents down to him just so he can, be aware of them, and down the line, maybe find comfort in them. But arnica, I can't tell you how much my family relies on that in our household. Like, my son falls and hits himself.
Yes.
Where's grandma? Abuela,
Yeah.
traiga la arnica. That's the first thing we put on him. And that's something that's been passed down, because even I remember being a kid, or my little brother being a kid and bumping his head on the wall or whatever it may be. The first thing we resort to, that pomada de arnica pomade.
Get it, y'all. Get your arnica.
Yeah, and it's also an anti-inflammatory. Be cautious with ingesting it as a tea, though. I would not recommend it too much as a tea, but yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to drink it orally. I would not recommend it, but externally, you can make salves out of it. You can leave it in oil over a period of time, put it on your shelf in a dark spot, shake it up for a couple of weeks, strain it after like a month or two, and that you can use. You can just rub it. She hurts herself all the time running around.
And tell me why eucalyptus is another one.
It's an amazing anti-inflammatory.
Eucalyptus.
Yeah, it's extremely stimulating. It helps open up all the vessels, the sinuses. It helps get that blood flow going, which is good. That's good for healing. It's good for bringing down swelling too. It's amazing. I love eucalyptus.
So, I forgot what I was gonna say. It was
A lot to take in. Is it the boner effect still?
well, you'll never know. You'll never know. This is one thing they got right here. Um, oh, microdosing. Does anybody know, as far as grieving, does anybody know anything on that as far as grieving? Around when I was grieving my father, my dad was in the military before, and I ended up being after one of my events, my first cannabis wellness party. One of the guys that spoke was this group called Veterans Walk and Talk. So it was good to go, which was part of my dad's legacy, because I'm not pro-war, but I'm all about taking care of people after. And I was trying to take care of some military people after. Like my dad never went to my dad was a corpsman in Vietnam, which is like pretty raw place to be, and he never went to a psychologist. Um, and a lot of those guys from that era never really were able to talk about a lot of those things. So being able to go there and help people that were actively, by doing it by supporting money wise or just going on the hikes to that, and seeing how much a lot of them through cannabis and microdosing mushrooms and a lot of things in that realm, they're able to get off of boatloads of pharmaceutical medication. So has anybody had any experience, or do you have any knowledge about microdosing or doing a full dose of mushrooms or anything in that realm?
I
Yes,
didn't know
no?
you were gonna say anything. So for myself personally, I've experienced microdosing. Um, I would, I wouldn't recommend it for anybody who's, well, microdosing I think is okay, microdosing, but not in huge quantities. And even then, in microdosing, I've always said to anybody that is curious about it, I'm just like, just don't really jump into it unless you're mentally in a state where you are ready for what you're about to experience and go through. Um, because it brings everything up to the surface that you've tried burying down so deep. And if you don't have the support system or, again, the mentality, the strength, or the spirit to conquer and overcome that, I say be cautious and be careful. And a lot of research has
Mm-hmm.
been done that it is beneficial for depression and PTSD and all these things. But again, I think it's something that we don't know too much about or don't have as much experience. It's something that we should be cautious of, because a lot of people nowadays with drugs and opiates and so many things, we have a tendency to become addicted or want to stay in this realm and stay high and stay,
Mm-hmm.
disconnected. Not that that plant does that, because it does quite the opposite, but still it's intoxicating. Literally, it's intoxicating. So I recommend to do it with caution. If anybody does, think about doing it, it's the same thing like with ayahuasca. Any type of plant medicine, because I'm an herbalist and I work with so many different herbs. I think it's very important to be cautious of what type of plants that you are messing with, and to have respect for them
Mm-hmm.
and to take them seriously and
And
not just
and actually
overdo it.
a good guide to take you through the process too.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would always like recommend people do their homework, right? Read as much as you can, learn as much as you can
Yeah.
before resorting to any use.
Yeah.
Speak to your doctors if possible. I know, doctors might not want to vouch for the use of, but as you know, your own individual, you're able to have these conversations with them and discuss at least adverse risks and potentials of something going wrong, right? And they can at least offer some type of professional support. Microdosing, if you're trying to do microdosing and THC, I'm going to drop this jewel. Lowell Farms, they have these awesome mints and they are microdosed. So if you've never used tetrahydrocannabinoids, THC, I think that's a good avenue of starting off with something that's not going to go and put you on your back or your knees or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For anybody definitely who hasn't had experiences, and even then, it's not. I don't think it's necessary for everybody, for everyone to go down that journey and experience that. If you're open-minded and you're aware and you're fully capable of it, you know, go. But even then, you know, we all have our weak moments, and you know, it would be real shitty if somebody had their weakest moment trying to do something like that, and it put them in even a worse state of mind, you know. So I always tell people, everybody I know, I'm like, please be cautious of that, you know, be mindful, because it's not anything like that is not something that we should just play with or mess with. And I don't recommend any drugs that aren't natural. And for this, it's something that is natural, but even then, like I said, it's a toxin. It's poisoning the body. So
I stayed away from that stuff because I was one of the ones that those say no to drug videos worked for a long period of time. I mean, even though I knew they were dumb and funny, they worked. They
Oh,
that's
but
good.
it's when people would explain it to me, it didn't like it wasn't something that excited me. It just seemed like they're getting out of reality as opposed to, oh, it gave me this idea. Now I hear that more. It gave me this idea and I was able to make this change. But one of the TED Talks that I think it might have been banned, the guy said when you get the call, answer the phone. Some people have so much of a dependency on these things that they don't get in tune and make life changes. So they have to keep on going back there, or they have to go to Burning Man every year to be
Yeah,
woke, opposed to living
right.
a woke life on a consistent basis.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've seen people in, you know, in that phase and never get out of that phase, you know. And then I've seen people in that phase and they get out of it, you know, and I would tell them, like, hey, you don't need to continuously do these things and consume these things to be, you know, like you say, woke or aware, or to feel like you're living freely, you know. And I think some, you know, some of us go through that experience, and in this world where we're exposed to so many things, it's hard, again, not to. You have to have a strong spirit, and that's why I say, you know, don't expose yourself to those things. If you're already dealing with some sort of pain or loss, you know, seek help, seek guidance, or even go within as much as you can, instead of, like I was mentioning earlier, don't try to use anything around you as a source of healing. I think when it comes to loss, losing somebody, it's nothing physical. It's not like I got hurt or you stabbed me or I'm bleeding out or I have some sort of illness. Really, it's all mental. So when, you know, when we're dealing with loss, I think that's when we need to go inwards and truly figure out why it is that we're hurting so much about the loss. And if it is a loss that, you know, is so grand, we need to try to connect with that a little bit more and try to, you know, see it a little bit more, because it's still there. Parts of it are, you know, the essence is still there, or what I like to call it is a footprint. And it's more like a part of our spirit, I feel like, that gets like left behind as we go on throughout our day. The things we touch, it's kind of like leaving a fingerprint behind, you know. And everybody leaves that fingerprint or footprint behind somewhere. Even when we're still alive, there's still somebody else, you know, seeing that fingerprint or footprint there, and they're still reminiscing and thinking about the effects that you had on them. and the beauty, or even the pain. You know, we all leave that footprint behind, whether it's a pretty one or an ugly one, or you know, a print we want to leave behind or not. And so I think that's what we need to tap into more, and looking into that footprint and really figuring out what it is, and letting it be exactly what that is. It's just a footprint.
I remember going through my grieving process after the 48 hours of hell with when my father passed away, that there was something he said to me, and I'm not going to get into it because it could throw this conversation in a whole new pattern, but there's something he said to me that was really fucking mean. And 48 hours after and it was something that always pissed me off, like anything it had been years since it happened, but it always pissed me off, like he just said it anytime that it happened. And 48 hours after he died, when I was going back, okay, legacies, laughter, and helping people, I thought about what he said, and I thought it was so fucking funny. I was like, that's me. I say, and Corona can attest to this. Like, sometimes I say some raw fucking shit to fucking get under your skin to wake you up. And yes, he didn't condone some of the ways that I was going about it. He did, well, he kind of like didn't want to pay attention for the last 5-6 years and everything. But at that 6 years and before that, he was fighting it at that level. But it was like a raw one. And even when times were really bad for us, for him, that's when I was doing film projects with some students that were doing things that were kind of bothering me and not being productive, and it made me become better. So a lot of times, because we have earthly blind spots and we're not in tune of the essence of the people around us as much, we lose sight of that. So does anybody want to like add? I'm gonna give each of you a final thought, and then we can wrap up. You want to go first, Amanda?
Sure, I'll go first. What is it? What did you?
Just final thought. Like, yeah, just like, how do you want to end this?
How do I want to end this? So I think kind of what I was channeling earlier. I feel like that's what spirits wanted me to remind people of the most, is when dealing with loss, when, you know, going through that grieving process, go within and try to really heal yourself, gain your power back, and believe in yourself, and know that, you know, that their spirit is still there with you. And if you just look around and open your eyes and your mind, that you'll be able to be more in tune with those spirits around you, and know that they're connected. You might not be able to speak with them, you know, in the same language as you once were before, but I think you can definitely speak with them in a new language that you two get to learn yourself. And that's kind of, I think, what Corona was touching on earlier. You know, we as individuals each get to experience that message on our own, in our own way. And so I think, you know, as somebody dealing with loss, just go through that experience, and, you know, don't be afraid to learn a new language.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And one thing I wanted to add before we get Corona back on here is my when I was talking about channeling the Bob Marley and everything like that, another thing is I was saying, well, even though my dad doesn't have stuff written down as much, and I haven't seen, I don't know where even my mom, like what her I know what political party she belongs to and everything like that. The fact that I can channel Bob Marley, you're around somebody on a daily basis and they're dead, you can channel their energy.
Yeah.
And we alluded to while they're alive and that footprint, but that footprint's evolving. It's evolving within you. That's one of the things when I was suffering with my friend's daughter, that my friend had killed his daughter, Amy. Well, that's one of the things that Corona says, like, Amy's alive through us. And she had never met Amy, but she heard me talk about her. And she heard sometimes when I was kind of running stuff by her because I was like thinking about how to help Amy or discussing some things that I was doing. So Corona, we were kind of like putting a end. How'd you want to? Your final thought, Jerry? Pretend you're Jerry Springer and give us a final thought.
What's my final thought? I mean, I said it earlier, just I think the importance of us experiencing life to the fullest, experiencing those around us and showing them love, care, and compassion as much as we can, because we don't know when our last day will be. We don't know when we will be able to mend those relationships that we probably broke as well, right?
Yeah.
It's never too late. It's never too late, and it's always a good time to try and take a more healthier path. I think that's another thing I can kind of leave us with. Yeah.
And
always try to be the better version of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I wanted to thank you too for doing a great job on everything that we do on a weekly basis, even though we are all living our own lives. And also, I think it's beautiful to see two moms with their children and the way that you talk to them when they're talking to us. And I like that we have a space that you can be a kick-ass mama and accomplishing things in the world. So.
Also,
yeah.
One more thing I wanted to say that just came to mind. This is not our final place. This is not the last. Think of it. I don't know if any of you guys have seen Dragon Ball Z, but forgive me. I'm just gonna bring them into this conversation.
I love it.
But okay, exactly. If you've seen Dragon Ball Z, then you just know this is not our the final form. We have many. This is just one. And we're just here learning. Just, if you haven't seen Dragon Ball Z, you guys need to watch it, okay? Because there's so much to learn.
we have more homework?
Yep.
More homework.
The best kind of homework, though. That's the best. That's the best kind of homework. I wouldn't mind watching it one more time again. But definitely, we don't have just one life here. I think we have many. And I think each time we come back around, like in a video game, we learn a little bit more. We learn how to get through those stages a little bit smoother and easier than before. So that's my final words. I know. I see what you did there. I see that.
Peace. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Yes, thank you all for joining.
Say bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.